The James Show Podcast.
We still have the reaction to the Charlie Kirk shooting getting people in trouble. We still have people saying terrible things about this. And, you know, we're a week into this now. And I think there's a couple of phases that happen in an event, a tragedy like this. Number one is in that first 48 hours, there's all kinds of misinformation. People are reporting wrong stuff. And we're going to find out in a couple of days things that we were wrong about. And you always have a chance to see people make corrections. You always have a chance to see people, if they do get it wrong, and find out later do they say they were wrong? Do they not address it at all? So we're in an interesting spot here because there are a lot of people who are saying over the weekend, this guy, well, he's MAGA. Look. And I love the justifications that he had for it. They're like, he's not one of us. He's not a left-winger. Why? Well, because he comes from a decent family and he's not visibly repulsive and he gets good grades. He's not a ham planet with blue hair. So it's like, are you insulting your own people? They're like, yeah, he can't be one of us. Look, he looks like a decent human being. I thought that was funny. And it was still happening at the beginning of this week. Jimmy Kimmel still saying he's MAGA on Monday's show.
Right? We had some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it. In between the...
Yeah, and then he goes on to tell a semi-funny joke. Yeah, he's MAGA. Sure he is, Jimmy. But this is what he has to tell himself to make himself feel better. Do you know how hard it is to get someone to admit that this ideology that they've been spouting their entire lives, saying on TV in front of millions of people, putting on social media in front of millions of people, to admit all that was wrong and they're big old dupes? It's almost impossible. That's why I applaud it so much when it happens. That's why it's so amazing, these conversion stories and watching people go through that process. It's a tough but mature process to go through. I don't know if we're ever going to get Jimmy Kimmel back. But Scott Jennings was surrounded on his CNN show, well, Abby Phillips' CNN show, of which he is in the cast. It's him, 5 other lefties, including Montel Williams for some reason. And they're all debating on whether or not this guy is left-wing. And after about 4 minutes of this, Scott Jennings finally gets to talk, and you could just hear in his voice, he's just blown away by these people.
Guys, the evidence here is overwhelming. He said, Charlie Kirk, I can't stand this hate anymore. I'm going to take him out. The testimony from him and the statements of his family, he had become more left-wing. He etched the statements that are made by the left about Republicans and conservatives and Charlie Kirk fascist on the bullet casings.
He made a joke about it in his last text.
Well, it doesn't sound like a joke to me because someone's dead and about to be buried.
Well,
so it doesn't sound like a joke to me. So I'm just telling you, there is an effort. There was an effort all weekend long on the left to try to make this guy sound like he was a conservative. That failed. That was passed around all over the weekend. That has now failed. The evidence has now come out. He was motivated by hate. He was motivated by left-wing radicalism. He got mixed up with some trans ideology in his life. We'll learn more about that, I'm sure, when more evidence and testimony comes out. We are looking around the edges of this for something other than what's staring us in the face. Left-wing radicalism got this kid. He went up to a roof and he murdered our friend, and that's what happened.
And it's not to gang up and point fingers at the other side and try and make, people who are, disparate third parties be like, see, my political opponents are evil. It's that if you don't address what's staring you in the face, another flavor of left-wing radicalism, being violent, then you're not going to have the real conversation. You don't diagnose the right disease, you're not going to apply the right medicine. If you're going to go after the guns, it's a problem with the guns. Really? Is it a problem with the guns? Because the guy that shot up the school at Evergreen, Colorado, used a revolver. You have any gun control that would stop that? It was also in a gun-free zone. Did that work? The guy that shot Charlie Kirk, single shot, 30-06, it's a bolt-action rifle. 1 bullet per trigger pull, and then you have to do a whole motion to get another bullet in there. It's not even semi-automatic. Also in a gun-free school zone. No, we need to have the real conversation here. And that requires putting all of these disparate violent acts in context together. Because the radicalization of this Antifa guy, whether it was you want to blame anything specific to do with trans or Antifa in general or just left-wing, let's not get into the minutia. Let's just recognize that that's the same radicalization that had our ICE facility shot up in Alvarado this summer, and the 3 law enforcement officers who were shot at the ICE facility in McAllen here in Texas as well. It's a different flavor, but still on the left wing, on the Team Blue, all the Free Palestine people that committed acts of violence. That's your team too. Whether it's the guy on New Year's Day in New Orleans mowing over people in Bourbon Street, whether it's the guy also in Colorado with the homemade blowtorch torching elderly Jewish people, or the Hispanic guy who converted to Islam and then felt the need to go shoot 2 Jewish diplomats outside of the museum in D.C. Whether it's all the Tesla dealership firebombings, all the car vandalisms, 2 Trump assassination attempts, the Black Lives Matter rally where 6 Dallas police officers lost their life in my backyard over here. That's your team too. Luigi Mangione murdering the United Health CEO. That's your team too. The ICE protesters throwing bricks at cop cars in Los Angeles. That's you too. There's a whole slew of just anti-Christian. So whether it's BLM motivated, whether it's Antifa motivated, whether it's anti-Christian motivated, whatever it is, it's some flavor of Team Blue that keeps doing this. It ain't the guns. It's lefties with guns, maybe, but it's not the guns. No one with the MAGA hat is sniping their political opponent from 200 yards away on a college quad. We had the anti-Christian mass murder at the Catholic school in Nashville, anti-Christian mass murder at the Catholic school in Minneapolis, the anti-Christian attempted mass murder at Joel Osteen's church. Luckily, that shooter got taken out before there could be a mass murder. There was the anti-Christian mass murder at the Waukesha Christmas parade. There's a shooting at the GOP baseball practice. There was the 4 Baton Rouge cops who were murdered in a BLM ambush in 2016. The 2 NYPD officers who were assassinated in their car as a revenge killing for Eric Garner in 2016. We had 2 fatal shootings in Chaz. We had all kinds of murders from Antifa going back in 2020. The Charlotte train stabbing of the Ukrainian refugee, one of yours. Charlie Kirk assassinated, one of yours. So no, I do not buy this both sides argument. We need to have the real discussion. And it starts with stop with the Nazi crap. Stop dehumanizing us. None of us are literally Hitler. Most of the headlines are still focused on Charlie Kirk, the aftermath, the teachers getting themselves fired, the Abilene ISD superintendent making a viral article that's gone online, and we'll be covering all that. But there was also another big headline that happened today that can affect your money. Spencer McGowan Net Worth Radio is coming back on the James Show. So Jerome Powell lowers rates. Market doesn't seem to care very much. There was a weird convulsion for about an hour today, but other than that, I think last time we talked, we were expecting this to all kind of be priced in, and it looks like we were right.
Well, part of it, you did hit 46,000 on the Dow. So you moved from 44 to 46, lickety split. So you got your rally ahead of time. And this is good evidence. There was anticipation. Mortgage rates are down 0.5% since the beginning of June. So the Treasury market and the banking system was actually, they were anticipating this because Federal Reserve, they wear suits, play golf, and so do the bankers.
I hear you on that. So were you surprised, though, that it was only a 1/4 point and not something more?
The T-bill market predicted a 3/8% cut, which is kind of rare.
Do they even do that?
No, they move in quarters usually. They've done odd things in the past, but the expectation for a 0.5% cut was signaled when the T-bills, 90-day Treasury follows Fed funds rate, when it went below 4%. That's telling you, wow, it was going to be bigger than a 1/4. What actually happened? Well, the Federal Reserve signaled they're going to cut rates again October 29th and again December 10th. That's in their dot plot where they all kind of write down what they think is going to happen. But that information was actually being built into cheaper auto loans and mortgages really since the beginning of June.
So is there anything like you help people with their financial decisions? If I called you and you're my financial advisor saying, oh, hey, look, Spencer, what should I do? They lowered interest rates. Is the answer nothing?
Well, the rates did come down ahead of time, right? And part of the push-pull, the reason they probably didn't do 0.5% was because it would scare everybody that things are really bad and they know something we don't. That's part of the logic on that. But it does tell you the path is towards 3.5% or 3% over the next 2 years, indicated by the 2-year Treasury yield being closer to 3.5%. That's good news for the value of high cash flow assets and profitable companies.
All right. Well, thanks for breaking it down. You say you expect more rate cuts before the end of the year.
That's what the Federal Reserve signaled in their little dot plots that they published today, in their forward projections. So what they're saying is, yeah, we expect that we're going to be taking the rates down by another 0.5%. And the T-bill market, the 90-day T-bill, it's already moved to reflect that average rate when it's 3.96% right now. So sometimes you got to watch the right tea leaves, but it's actually being built into the Treasury market with trillions of dollars.
All right, good stuff. This is Spencer McGowan from Net Worth Radio. You can hear him at 4 o'clock on Saturdays here on WBAP, networthradio.com. Thank you very much, Spencer.
Thank you, James.
To the phones we go. This is William in Fort Worth. You're on WBAP.
How's it going, sir?
Hey, thanks for hanging on. What can I do for you?
No, man, I just wanted to make a comment about the Jasmine Crockett and the Crockett crap she says. She talks about how history, what they don't want us to learn history, or them to learn history, but yet I can remember just a few years ago, they were pushing to remove all these monuments and statues that literally founded our history of our country. And I'm so confused and lost. I don't understand it.
Yeah, that's a easy pickings there on the criticism of her statement. For those of you who didn't hear it, it was pretty long, but I mean, I guess I can play part of that again. But Jasmine Crockett kind of asking if she should tap the brakes on the whole fascist talk with the GOP, and she said no and kind of went into this spiel.
I'd like to ask you to respond to critics who have pointed the finger at Democrats who have used phrases like fascist or Hitler, made comparisons to those things over time. Do you think that that's contributed to this, or are those critics wrong?
They're absolutely wrong. Here's the reality. They don't want American people to know any forms of history. We know that there was news out today about the president going after yet more historical information. The reality is that when we look at what is taking place.
Yeah, you're right. That's real rich coming from the people who tear down monuments, but also from the people who just a couple years ago tried to rewrite American history with the 1619 Project. You remember that big thing the New York Times was pushing?
Mm-hmm. Yep,
That's a complete rewriting of history. No, we're not scared of the American people learning real American history. In fact, we're actually looking forward to it. You know, what's going to happen? Does Jasmine Crockett know that the Democrat Party was the party of slavery and segregation and Jim Crow and separate but equal?
Probably not. She's probably not done any research on that at all. Probably not.
No, I don't think she's one of the dumb ones. I think she's one of the ones that can rationalize it in her head with, well, there was a party switch between now and then. Certainly you must know that. You need to go do study some real history or read some book that I'm not going to read. I think they have to rely on a party switch theory, because anyone who goes through, there's no doubt the KKK was a paramilitary arm of the Democrat Party. There is no doubt that the racially motivated lynchings were a phenomenon within Democrat circles more so than Republican circles. There is no doubt that they were the ones who did slavery and Jim Crow and filibustered the Civil Rights Act of 1964, not because they didn't like the nuance of how the federal government got new powers over state elections. It was because they were racist. So
yes, exactly. And like your point you were making earlier about how many killings we have had, not only here in the state of Texas, but just in general throughout the country since the past, 8 years, it blows my mind you were going through it and how you remember that. I was like, did he jot all these down, or does he just got this in his memory because that's how diehard of an American he is, and he is for the American people?
No. Don't give me too much credit. I have it listed out in front of me because I knew I was going to do that again today. Bro, I drink way too much to remember that whole list, sir. My memory is just riddled with Shiner Bock resin and God knows what else. Thank you, sir.
And I just want to I want to show mad respect to Charlie Kirk and his family, and may he rest in peace, and God save our country.
Hey, agreed. And listen, in that list, that's sort of an incomplete list, because when we talk about the deaths that are caused by leftists and their ideology, we have those are only the active killings, the active murders. We have the ones that are passively foisted upon us and our children by Democrat policies, like the lady that got stabbed on the train in Charlotte. She died because Democrats got their way. They got their policies. They got their people in positions of power. They executed their terrible ideas, and their terrible ideas had negative consequences in the real world. You could say that about Laken Riley. You could say that about Jocelyn Nungery. You could say that about the Indian guy who just got his head chopped off in Dallas last week. You could say that about, remember the lady that was killed by the jet skiers? What was that, like Memorial Day weekend? That was illegal immigrants that hit her with the jet ski on the lake here in Dallas. You could say that about the truck driver who killed 5 people in Austin, the truck driver who killed 5 people in Terrell, the truck driver who sent 17 people to the hospital in Lindell like 2 weeks ago. Yeah, it's not just them, their policies, everything. If you could solve for that, if you could solve for all the menace that comes from Team Blue, crime would drop by what, 95%? I wish we had that number, because that'd be interesting to know, wouldn't it? So we have more and more reports that are coming in. You're probably seeing some of them. You might even know some of these people who are losing their job for being absolute ghouls about a politically motivated assassination. And, celebrating murder like this is always wrong. Even if even if it's someone as low as a George Floyd, you shouldn't be like, hey, I'm so glad this happened. This is great. I'm smiling. I'm clapping. I'm dancing. Can we do Ben Shapiro next? I've seen a lot of those. Well, people are losing their job. That's hilarious. But also, the real phenomenon that Scott Adams was pointing out on Monday's show, the creator of Dilbert, isn't so much that these people think that way or that they even say this. They just are surprised to find out not everybody thinks like them. Not everybody thinks it's okay to celebrate murder. Not everybody. They're shocked they're getting fired. I thought that was kind of a fascinating take on it. Well, here we have new info that came out. And yesterday, a lot of people were reading for the first time some of the text message exchange between the Charlie Kirk assassin, suspect allegedly reportedly, and his boyfriend, girlfriend. I don't know. Don't get me in trouble. This isn't about a trans thing. This is about Matt Gutman being all gushy when he's talking about it. It's like, oh, boy, there's a duality here. You have a killer, and then you have this very touching guy. You have this, I don't know, this America's sweetheart is what he's trying to make him sound like.
We have seen an alleged murder with such specific text messages about the alleged murder weapon, where it was hidden, how it was placed, what was on it, but also it was very touching in a way that I think many of us didn't expect. A very intimate portrait into this relationship between the suspect's roommate and the suspect himself, with him repeatedly calling his roommate who is transitioning, calling him my love, and I want to protect you, my love. So it was this duality of someone who the attorney said not only jeopardized the life of Charlie Kirk and the crowd, but was doing it in front of children, which is one of the aggravating circumstances of this case. And on the other hand, he was, speaking so lovingly about his partner.
You think if you showed this guy a video of Hitler, like petting a dog, you think he'd be like, the duality of Hitler. Seems like such a nice, loving, thoughtful guy. And sometimes, other times he's gassing 6 million Jewish people. But other than that, he's not totally bad. Good Lord. So there's a little bit of an uproar. People were demanding he be fired. And I guess he got called into a meeting, and they're like, you're either going to apologize or walk the plank for this one. And so he's throwing some apologies out there. Good for him. But we're seeing this happen on a smaller level here in Texas. Later in the show, I'm going to relay the Abilene ISD superintendent his inflammatory posts. And again, just like the shooting itself, my shock isn't that the guy thinks that. My shock isn't even that the fact that he put it on social media and thought it would be okay. It's all the people in the comments under it. You can tell that they're trying to excuse this. They know it's one of theirs. And so they have to both sides this thing. They have to be like, well, both sides do it, or the parties switched ideologies at some point. No, they didn't. And no, we both don't. We're asking a lot for someone to change their entire worldview. For someone that if you've been trained and had it drilled into your head for the last 10 years by everyone that you trusted in the media, your favorite actors, your favorite musicians, your favorite college professors, half of your friends, that these people are fascist, it's asking a lot to ask someone to say, hey, could you just be open-minded and hear the fascist out? It's a big ask. Ray in Austin, you're on WBAP.
Hi, James. If you want to check the source of this, or at least when it reached critical mass, you don't have to go any further back than Barack Hussein Obama. His administration used the line, we're going to try to use the power of persuasion, and if we can't, we will use the persuasion of power, and that's exactly what they did. Now compare that to Charlie Kirk, who puts a microphone up and says, come to the microphone, step forward, and prove me wrong. How stunning is that contrast, and Democrats need to wake up.
Amen. Amen. Look, it was, I don't think it started with Barack Obama. I think things were getting better until Barack Obama. What racism was on the way out. It was disappearing slowly over the horizon like a sunset until Barack Obama came and he lifted that sun back up. And I think the critical mass moment that could have changed history and changed our society for the better was the Trayvon Martin moment, because he came out and he said, if I had a son, he'd look like Trayvon. But he's a guy who's a mix. He's like the perfect American.
It wasn't just racism as a whole, though. I mean, that guy, his whole administration, they had no interest in trying to persuade anyone. They had interest in implementing a tyrannical power from the government down to get their agenda.
Well, yeah, you're talking about his governing style. I'm talking about his rhetoric. Correct. Right? You realize he's one of the few people in America that could have believably said that I could have a son that would look like that could look like either Trayvon or George Martin. He could have bridged the gap. He had the ability to bridge the gap. He had the biology and the heritage to bridge the gap between white and black. He had a chance to bring us together. And like, hey, let's hear out both sides, or let's just not assume that race was a determining factor just because it was a black guy that was on the receiving end of violence from a non-black person. You didn't see George Zimmerman use any racial slurs. Let's just all calm down and let the justice system do its work. And he didn't calm it down. He came out and he said, if I had a son, he would look like Trayvon. He took sides, and he took sides based on race. And he showed you his loyalty wasn't to the truth, wasn't to the justice system, wasn't to justice. It was to social justice. And that was the biggest opportunity that Obama missed. He really could have pretty much ended racism, but instead he just inflamed it for another, 10, 20 years or so until, some guy's going to come along and end it. And I don't know if it's going to be a white guy, a black guy, or I just think it'd be beautiful poetic justice if it was a mixed race person. But the opportunity was there, and he chose against it. He chose against unity. With all the evil that we've seen here lately in the news, a lot of people are wondering, are we near the end times? And I don't take this lightly. This is something I hear my wife and her friends talk about seriously, like which prophecies have been fulfilled and which are yet to be fulfilled, and which one they're looking for, and are the rivers going to flow with blood or whatever the heck else. And, you can only dismiss it for so long. They make a lot of good points. So my next guest is going to be someone who's done a little bit more reading into this than I am. He's an author, Rick Pearson, and also the host of Prophecy USA. And he's got a book about analyzing Old Testament prophecies and whatnot. And let me just go ahead and first off, welcome to the James Show, Rick Pearson. Are we close to the end times?
James, I think we're living. First of all, thank you for having me on the show. Secondly, I think we're in the end of the end times, and I think that God is showing us that there's a great awakening. that's taking place in America.
So when you say end of the end times, how much time you think we got left? I know no one knows the exact date and time, but I mean, is this something that's going to happen in our lifetime, 100 years from now, 1,000 years from now? Do you have any sense of a timetable?
I have no sense of a timetable, but somebody asked me that on my television show, and they wanted to know when is Jesus coming? And I jokingly said next Thursday at 4:30 between Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy. Now, nobody knows the time or the day, but we're called to look for the signs. And the greatest signs in the Bible are happening right now in the United States of America.
Give me some.
America has met 53 biblical descriptions of a latter-day nation called Babylon the Great. She's met every description. She's the only nation in the history of the world, and there are 8 providential nations listed in Scripture that the prophets gave us. The 8th kingdom is a new world order, global antichrist system, but the 7th kingdom, before the 8th, is a nation called Babylon the Great. She has 53 biblical descriptions. The United States of America has met every description.
So what's something from the news that coincides with the end time prophecies?
Well, I think the fact that America is the richest, most powerful nation in the world. Bible says that this Babylon would be a golden cup in the hand of the Lord. She would have the wealthiest ports in the world. She would trade with the merchants of the earth. She would trade all 27 products. And with what is happening over in Israel, the fact that America is there negotiating peace all around the world tells us that America is playing a pivotal role in Bible prophecy, because all of this has to happen before the New World Order comes in. The New World Order actually destroys Babylon the Great. So we could be 30, 40, 50 years, but there has been a reprieve in America, a coming back to God, and it's been through the Trump administration. They're trying to pull America back to the Judeo-Christian principles, and if America comes back, she will stave off judgment.
Okay, so how do we know that they're talking about America there and not some of the other empires that kind of fit that description? That could be the British Empire from 100 years ago. That could be the Ottoman Empire before that. What makes us different?
Okay, she's the only nation out of the 8 providential nations. She's the only nation described as a woman. She's called the Lady of Kingdoms, and she has an iconic. The Bible says that she sits on the 7 mountains of the earth. Now, this was written 2,000 years ago. The iconic symbol of America is the Statue of Liberty. She has 7 spikes on her head, and that represents the 7 continents of the world where she has influence. And the Babylon the Great controls the whole world. Those other nations didn't control the whole world like the United States is doing. So Babylon is the richest, greatest, most powerful nation in the history of the world. And her military, her money controls the world. She fits every description of Babylon the Great.
All right.
So that tells me we're getting very close.
We're talking with Rick Pearson, author of America's Josiah Moment, an end-time reprieve of things to come. What prophecies haven't been fulfilled yet that you're looking for to happen soon?
There's going to be a war called the Gog-Magog War. It happens with Russia, Iran, Turkey, several other nations come down and attack Israel. That war has not happened yet, but the Abraham Accords is trying to prevent that war. The United States of America is trying to bring peace to the earth, and we'll see what happens. But someday, sooner or later, the Gog-Magog War will take place, and at that point, we will transition from the 7th nation to the 8th nation, the New World Order, and we will enter into a period called the Tribulation Period. Now, that has not happened yet, but that's on. Nobody knows the day or the hour when that will happen, but that's a major prophecy that has not taken place yet.
Well, can I throw in another prophecy? This will be the James Parker prophecy.
Okay.
Jesus is going to come back before the Cowboys win another Super Bowl. I'm pretty cynical after the first 2 games of the season, and I'm just letting it fly right there. This is Rick Pearson. If you want to hear more from him, he's got the book out, just came out, America's Josiah Moment, an end-time reprieve of things to come. See, I bet you my wife loves this segment. She loves talking about this stuff with her friends. Thank you very much, Rick Pearson. Good stuff.
Thank you, James. Bye-bye.
All right, coming up next, the superintendent of Abilene ISD, getting a lot of praise from some platforms for his response to the Charlie Kirk passing, and well, really the new education bills. But this is all rolled up into the same thing, because his message is, quit calling my teachers demons. You'll hear my response to that next on The James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP.